Hey everybody, this is Blake here, and welcome to my review of the latest WWE event, Fastlane. So, this company had a lot to make up for after the disastrous Royal Rumble event. And I will admit that after that, I did consider canceling my subscription to the network. Not just because the Royal Rumble, it just feels like I'm becoming more and more disillusioned with the WWE in general. I have disagreed with practically everything they have done. Um, and before I start getting into Fastlane itself, one of the things that really has bothered me about the WWE is it's so desperate to get new subscribers that it's not really considering its established fan base. There's something frustrating about letting new people who obviously aren't faithful to the network get in for free while we, the loyal fan base, have to pay for it. I remember 2014, Hell in a Cell. I recall nothing about that pay-per-view other than the main event and especially the finish to that main event. And I found the way that match ended, which was Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins in the Hell in a Cell match, to be very frustrating. And that is the only part of the entire pay-per-view that my memory has retained. But if I had acted out on that anger and canceled my subscription, would I have gotten Survivor Series for free? Because remember, we got November, or newbies got November for free, so they didn't have to pay for it. And then not only would I have watched Survivor Series, I could have just skipped TLC, which was a worthless pay-per-view. It would have sucked at the time that I'd have to miss the Royal Rumble, but that I'd actually watch the Royal Rumble and be like, God damn it, I should have just missed that. But then the following Raw, they'd show the highlights of the Royal Rumble, which was the event itself, for better or worse, and the incredibly awesome championship match. So, God, heavens forbid I miss the Ascension versus New Age Outlaws. So I would have gotten the best of that pay-per-view on Raw, so I would have gotten that for free too, and then the month of February would be free, so I wouldn't have to pay for Fastlane. I could have saved me like $40. So I'm kind of pissed I didn't think about that. Now, admittedly, I'm not sure if the WWE is aware of this, so maybe, they keep your record in their system so you can't just cancel and sign up, when they do one of these free promotions. I don't know, but I can't help but wondering if I missed an opportunity there. So leading into Fastlane, I had very mixed feelings because I thought the booking was incredibly misguided, if not outright stupid. I'll explain why when I discuss each and every match, but I felt these matchups were all terrible ideas. And then the writing made it even worse because the writing was generally outright bad. Sometimes it would be very lazy, other times it would be just really, really dumb. But yeah, so in terms of story, WWE is really letting me down. It's in many ways much worse than it has ever been, at least in the last year. On the other hand, I have to admit that I enjoyed the majority of the shows between the Rumble and Fastlane, simply because the match quality was really good. So even if Dean Ambrose versus Bad News Barrett was a really, really bad idea, they're both great workers, so maybe they'll tear down the house. That did give me some hope going into Fastlane. And there were areas where I was sure Fastlane would bomb that actually ended up working out pretty well. So is this a good pay-per-view? It's okay. It's much better than the Royal Rumble, and it's probably better than TLC. I don't really remember enough of Hell in a Cell or Survivor Series to make an adequate comparison, but off the top of my head, I'd probably say Fastlane is comparable to them, maybe even a little better, but I'd have to go back and watch those pay-per-views again, and I don't really want to do that. One thing I really felt hurt this pay-per-view was the audience participation. The crowd seemed dead. They barely reacted to any of the matches. Even when the matches themselves were pretty good, they just seemed disinterested in everything that was going on. And it always confuses me when crowds do that. It's one thing if they get furious and just turn on the entire show like they did with the Royal Rumble, but if you're going to pay for a ticket and you're just going to be kind of bored from beginning to end, why bother paying for that ticket? But so that really deflated the entertainment value Fastlane could have provided, because the audience is very important when it comes to determining whether a match is great or subpar. One of the best examples is probably Hogan versus Andre the Giant. Very slow-paced and boring match in retrospect, but there is something very inspiring about how the crowd is getting into it, and that probably sums up the entirety of Hogan's career, because he wasn't a great in-ring worker, but he knew how to play off the crowd, and their reactions to him tended to make the matches more exciting than they really were. So that really hurt Fastlane. But let me bring up my notes and talk about every match and segment and why they worked or failed. So it started off with Miz TV. I feel that the whole storyline involving Miz and Mizdow, it's gone on for too long, but I also kind of feel WWE deserves praise for being patient, for allowing that storyline to burn kind of slowly, so when they inevitably do break up and start feuding with each other, it would ideally have more of an impact. But it's hard to say whether it's going to work or not until it happens. Maybe they'll split up and that storyline will end up being a disaster in which everything that preceded it will feel utterly pointless and unsatisfying, much like the Bella storyline of 2014. Or it could be a major success. So it's too early to tell. I feel that there were other ways they could have put heat on The Miz by maybe having Sandow work matches that they obviously wouldn't win while he just goes and dicks off in the back or just hangs out outside the ring. They did that a little bit, but not enough. I got tired of seeing The Miz seem incredibly strong while facing off the Usos on his own. I know that that's supposed to make us hate him because he's not tagging in Sandow, but instead it just makes The Miz look like a beast. But they are at least advancing it somewhat. The Miz is becoming much more abusive towards Mizdow, and Mizdow, I think, is really kind of, selling me on almost that wounded puppy look, but at the same time, you're seeing frustration, you're seeing anger. So both of those guys are doing that really well, and I enjoyed the Miz and Heyman bickering. They're both heels, so, at times they'd kind of suck up to each other, but at other times they'd clash, and I they're both really good talkers, and there was nothing amazing about the segment, but it was good. It did its job. The first real match was the Authority, Rollins, Big Show, and Kane versus the Rebellion, Ziggler, Ryback, and Rowan, and this is an example as to why the writing really sucked in going into Fastlane, because I didn't even realize this match was going to happen until Thursday. It reeks of the writers have absolutely no idea what to do with any of these guys at this time, so you might as well just throw them all there. God, where do I even begin with this? So at first it seemed like they were going with a Rollins versus Ziggler program, and that would have been fine, even though I feel they've clashed too many times on various Raws and SmackDowns in which Rollins would usually win for it to matter as much as it could have. But, they're both good workers, so, why not? Rollins is a much hated heel. He's probably the most over villain at this time, and Ziggler, even though I think he's incredibly overrated, he's one of the most popular baby faces, so you might as well have them clash. But they didn't have a whole lot of time dedicated to their feud. I remember only one or two promos that they cut against each other. Otherwise, they may as well not have been feuding at all. And then I remember that one stupid moment where Ziggler, Ryback, and Rowan failed to kick the crap out of Rollins and J&J security. But as bad as Ziggler might have it right now, Ryback and Rowan have got it a lot worse because their storylines just lack direction. One of the main problems with this team of Ziggler, Ryback, and Rowan is that they no longer feel like individuals united by a cause. They just feel like three interchangeable people, different body types and styles, obviously, but in terms of character and storylines, what has Ryback done? He's barely done anything since the aborted feud with Rusev, and Rowan's just been being used as a jobber. And Ziggler is being treated as an afterthought. At least with the Authority, that the WWE seems more interested in them because, for one, Rollins gets a lot of mic time. And then the Big Show and Kane have been very involved in the much more important Reigns versus Bryan storyline. And I think that was another problem with this booking. It just seems odd that the Big Show and Kane would suddenly change focus out of nowhere with very little build-up. They should have had Big Show and Kane just like trolling Reigns and Bryan by just hanging out outside the ring. Maybe they'd threaten to attack them during their main event match, or maybe they might even attack them, causing Reigns and Bryan to briefly team up in order to take them out. Something along those lines, but now they get placed in this very fillery match. So that's why I thought the writing sucked in regards to this. Now, I will concede that the match itself was surprisingly entertaining. I thought it would suck because the majority of these people don't really have great in-ring chemistry. Ziggler, for example, is at his best when fighting somebody bigger than himself, but he's usually not good when it comes to bringing out great matches out of giants. So, Ziggler versus Kane or Big Show, they weren't going to be very great confrontations anyway. And for some reason, when you get two people that are very alike, like Rollins and Ziggler, it almost always lets me down. I always expect a lot more out of it, but instead they're just consistently good matches when you want something greater, and I'm not sure if it's even possible to really deliver on that. Another problem with Ziggler versus Rollins is I feel Rollins can pretty much do everything Ziggler can, except better. They're both great in-ring talents, but Ziggler has a bland personality and average mic skills, whereas Rollins, his personality just stands out a lot more, and he is really good on the mic. So it just makes Ziggler look bad, in my opinion. Ryback's really strong, but he doesn't seem to be as strong as somebody like Cena or Lesnar, because you don't see him pick up guys like the Big Show or Kane that much for whatever reason. And that's a lot of the fun involving big men like that, giants, because you like to see them get picked up and body slammed or whatever. So I don't know if he has like weaker legs or weak core strength, but even though Ryback looks really buff, they don't always seem to use his strength to what you'd think would be his maximum potential, but maybe he just can't do it. And then Rowan, he's just an average worker. He's not going to, light the ring on fire anyway, regardless of who he's with. And then, of course, Big Show and Kane, solid workers, but once again, they need somebody who could lift them up and really show off their strength. That's their whole purpose. But you know what? I thought everybody actually looked pretty good in this match. Rollins had the most memorable spots. In fact, every time he was in the ring, I was being entertained, regardless of who he was with. Ziggler also had some really good spots. Big Show, he looked dominant and strong. Ryback also looked dominant and strong. It's actually kind of interesting seeing how these teams sort of mirror each other. Big Show and Ryback, they're the difficult to conquer monsters. Ziggler and Rollins are the high flyers, and Rowan and Kane are the jobbers. But Kane somehow ended up scoring the win. I was not expecting that, but that's the only thing he did which really stood out. I think they should present Kane as like the leader type, the general. I liked when they were doing that when Rollins and Orton were working together, because his ego seems to be based in the authority. He's less likely to get caught up in the moment and want to steal the spotlight for himself, but they don't really use that anymore. And Rowan, to his credit, he actually sold his injuries really well. He hurts his leg when he misses the Big Show. How do you miss the Big Show? But when he was trying to kick him and he hit the post, and like you could tell when he kicks Rollins at the end, he falls down because his leg's in so much pain. So presuming he's not really injured, that's one strength of Rowan. It appears anyway. He's really good at remembering the psychology in regards to selling his injuries. So yeah, like even though once again the booking and writing was really bad, the match itself was pretty good. Stardust versus Goldust. Side note, Dusty Rhodes is a really bad actor. He came before my time, so I don't really know what his strengths are, other than that he had a very distinct appearance. But man, his acting was really distractingly terrible. This was an example of the audience really letting down the match. It was actually a pretty good matchup. Stardust showed his athleticism. Goldust, brought out some of his good moves. When Goldust catches fire in terms of building momentum, he actually is a really good in-ring performer. It just seems like usually in his matches he seems to be just kind of average, but when he seems to care, he can deliver some good stuff. And it seemed like this was one of those kinds of matches. It had a real slow middle block, and the ending was really stupid. People are debating as to whether it was a real botch or whether it was planned, but it just seemed off. It was a bad way to end it. Great promo by Stardust afterwards. It gives me hope that this can become a real compelling storyline. But otherwise, it was a pretty good match, but the audience didn't care, so it just made it feel like it was dead in the water. In terms of the story, though, I think it was a bit too sudden. There was not a whole lot of foreshadowing in regards to their breakup, unless you want to count Cody's makeup change. Like he started, wearing purple and I think like green. Like around Christmas, it seemed like he adopted some Christmas colors. Unless that was subtle foreshadowing that maybe there is going to be some tension in the future. I just felt that it came too quickly. They should have had a more slow burn fallout, like what they had teased to last year. But because it was just so quick, it just feels like WWE is rushing into this program. Maybe because Goldust is retiring after WrestleMania. I don't know if that's going to be true or not. It seemed like Goldust denied it, but there was a lot of rumors surrounding that possibility. So we'll just have to see. But solid match. It just the crowd couldn't get into it, so it made it really difficult to enjoy. The Usos versus Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. Now, I was actually correct in my predictions in regards to the previous matches. I believe at first I did say I thought Ziggler's team would win, but I changed my mind before the pay-per-view occurred. But this was one I was actually wrong. I was sure Cesaro and Kidd were just being built up as credible filler, a team made to look strong only so that they can make the Usos look stronger. Unfortunately, that's the role Cesaro seems to be filling these days. But I was wrong. They ended up winning. They took the belts from the Usos, and I kind of feel that if that was the plan, they should have made Cesaro and Kidd look stronger at an earlier time. When they first debuted as a team, they were still being used as jobbers, even against like the New Day. But once they did eventually beat the New Day, that almost seemed to spring them into tag team contendership. I can't totally blame the WWE for that, though, because who else is there? The tag team division is in shambles right now. But I will concede that this is actually one of the few times where the writing worked. It seemed like there was a certain amount of depth to this storyline in regards to how they used Natty and Naomi. Usually I don't like it when they do that, but I thought this time it worked pretty well. And both divas actually ended up, producing some good in-ring work together thanks to this storyline, while of course you knew the Usos and Cesaro and Kid would deliver in regards to the ring. One of the problems with the Usos is they're great performers, but the writers never seem to have any idea what to do with them, so either there won't be much of a storyline, they'll just be there either as the champions or as contenders for the championship, or they'll serve as backup to somebody else, like when Cena was fighting Bray and the Usos were fighting the other Wyatts, so they were just kind of like the bodyguards to Cena, and that's kind of lazy. But no, they did a lot more in this feud, so I got to give credit to the writers there. And it was a great match. It was maybe a bit too short, but it was very entertaining, very exciting, gritty, stylish. I liked how there was a lot of new content, a lot of stuff I haven't really seen before. Tyson Kidd had some fantastic spots. Cesaro got to show off his strength more so than he has been able to in a long time. The Usos are, of course, they're high flyers, but even they brought in an aggression that you hadn't really seen them have very often. There was one spot I really liked where one of the Usos picked up, I don't remember if it was Cesaro or Kid. I think it was Cesaro, but I could be wrong. Outside of the ring and just slammed him against the barricade. That was pretty awesome. So I was totally involved in this match. It's definitely worth watching. Triple H confronts Sting. One of the issues I have with WWE is that it has this very wishy-washy relationship with the fourth wall. For example, I remember when Cesaro cut a pretty bad promo in regards to how he's been held down because higher-ups don't think he connects with audiences. Now, behind the scenes in real life, that's true. He has been held down. He's being told to lose the majority of his matches while making his opponent look strong. But in terms of the storyline, Cesaro has gotten almost non-stop opportunities by the Authority. He's been involved in almost every championship imaginable throughout 2014. I believe he contended for the tag team belts at times, the World Heavyweight Championship, the United States Championship, Intercontinental Championship. He's gotten all these opportunities, he's just lost. So the behind-the-scenes knowledge and what we see on screen is just kind of contradictory. And in this case, they keep saying that Sting is not a WWE superstar, even though somebody had to create that Titantron theme for him. And I've seen Sting on the network, and JBL even at one point says, Triple H made a mistake by signing Sting. And yet, so it's just, once again, contradicting information, and that's why the writing is stupid. Otherwise, I've enjoyed the majority of the build-up to this match. I agree that Triple H versus Sting would be a more compelling feud than Undertaker versus Sting. For one, the promos in that storyline would blow. What would they say? Sting would just stand there silently while Undertaker gives a few words. That would be hard to sell. But I also think Triple H has a better chance at bringing a greater match out of Sting than Undertaker would at this time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to their WrestleMania confrontation. Hopefully it's really good. And this segment, it was good in itself, but I feel they should have just had it on Raw. I did like how Triple H does temporarily get the better of Sting. Cuts a good promo, attacks him. Sting doesn't say anything. I feel like he should be talking by this point. But Triple H beats him up and only ends up losing that confrontation because he gets cocky, pulls out his sledgehammer, and then Sting meets him with his bat. And I'm thinking, okay, now I could fully mark out. They're using their trademark weapons, and it's awesome. I really hope that there's some sort of clash there. whether it's in the WrestleMania match or, at another confrontation when building up to said WrestleMania match where Triple H and Sting just beat the crap out of each other with their weapons. The crowd once again sort of ruined it. I mean, they're cheering, but it seems more polite. There's a lack of passion. And that did once again hurt the segment, but I still feel they should have just put it on Raw anyway. Then there was the Diva match, Paige versus Nikki. I wasn't really looking forward to this from the beginning, even though Nikki is an okay worker and Paige is an exceptionally good worker. I also felt that Paige was being set up as a credible filler because right before becoming a contender for this belt, she was more or less just jobbing since she lost the Divas Championship and AJ Lee took her leave of absence. Hell, I think when she became a contender, it was still when she had lost a match, or it was a tag team match, I believe, at the Rumble. So to me, it was obvious Nikki would win, and I was correct. Very bland, average match. Nothing horrible, but nothing to write home about. Could have easily happened on Raw, and I wouldn't have cared less. In fact, I probably would have just skipped forward through it on Raw, but I feel like I had to watch it just so I could talk about it for this video. Ambrose versus Bad News Barrett was a horrible idea because Ambrose has been on a losing streak in regards to his pay-per-view matches. He hasn't won a single pay-per-view match since the Shield has broken up, I believe. And Bad News Barrett arguably has gotten it worse because they keep having Barrett job to the likes of R-Truth and Sin Cara. Now he might come back and win in rematches, but they're really going far in terms of making Barrett look weak. So nobody is going to benefit from this match because if Barrett goes over Ambrose, he is beating a loser. If Ambrose goes over Barrett, he is beating an even bigger loser. And the Intercontinental Championship right now means nothing because, once again, if Ambrose wins, yeah, you might have a more credible champion, but at the same time, I'm tired of seeing everybody play hot potato with this belt that has totally devalued it. In total contrast to the United States Championship, which doesn't get defended enough, so it just feels like a decoration for whoever currently has it. So this was a stupid storyline, stupid feud. None of the writing really excited me either. I thought the attempts at humor from Ambrose fell flat. The whole SNL spoof I thought was really dumb. The Bad News Zone is an awful idea. It doesn't seem like he's doing the "I'm afraid I got some bad news" soundbite anymore, which that was really good. They should just stick with that. It's like taking away Fandango's catchy. Oh wait, that's what they did with him too. That was the only thing that was keeping Fandango over. And one of Barrett's greatest, I'm going to say, attributes was his catchphrase, and it's just, he isn't using it. Now, the Bad News Zone bits are just really generic and uninteresting, and the match was pretty average. It in itself was a solid match, but it wasn't anything we couldn't have seen on Raw. In fact, I feel like I've seen this match before. The only difference was the finish, which I thought the way it ended was kind of stupid. I didn't even understand why Ambrose was disqualified, but it was the typical, they don't want to put anybody over at this time, so presumably they're going to have a rematch at Mania, but I did like how Ambrose just walked off with the belt. I'm kind of interested to see where it goes from there. I haven't watched Raw yet, so it's possible this can save itself, but so far I've been very unimpressed. Bray cut a promo, and it's pretty much him acknowledging that, yeah, he's challenging The Undertaker. The audience, once again, total disinterest, and that sort of ruined the segment, but in itself, I thought it was really good. I thought it was cool how you think Undertaker was coming out, but when the coffin opens, Bray there, he delivers a chilling promo that I actually understood. That wasn't just him rambling. It was a cool segment that was once again just sort of undermined by a lackluster crowd. I'm interested in this feud, even though I'm sure it's not going to be a very good match. I think that Bray should go over Taker, and Taker then should then retire. Granted, Undertaker knows his body and how long he could stay in the game more than I do, but the Brock Lesnar match concerned me for all the wrong reasons. So, if Undertaker is going to retire, having Bray actually finish him is a great way for Bray to finally get over as a main event threat. Cena versus Rusev, another one where the crowd kind of ruined, but it seemed like they were booing, but that was almost all they were doing half the time. So it gave the impression that they were rejecting the match. I thought this was a horrible idea in terms of booking because it was too early. I've always suspected that Rusev was being built up to ultimately be fed to Cena, but I figured there would be something bigger about it, that it would be a main event, that either Rusev would have the World Heavyweight Championship and Cena would step up to face him, or Cena would have the belt and Rusev would step up to face him. Instead, it feels more like Cena is stepping down to challenge Rusev. It's just weird seeing Cena go from being a world heavyweight contender to trying to get the United States Championship, a total mid-card belt. And it almost seems to me that Cena knows this, that Cena doesn't really want to be involved with this feud because his promos have lacked any sense of passion. Whether his first one was kind of comedic and then his other ones were much more serious. But I've seen serious Cena done well. I mean, look at his promos for when he was building up his Lesnar feud. Cena seemed like he was really into it, that he was fired up, that he was dangerous and intense. Here he just kind of seemed like he was going through the motions. And I don't blame Cena because there's no reason he should be competing for this belt, and Rusev has been booked as a total pussy as of late. When you think about it, what has Rusev done to really build up this feud? He lost to Ryback technically, and it's not like WWE is doing anything with Ryback, so I don't get why they did that. So that's immediately brings Rusev a notch down. He lasted till the very end of the Royal Rumble, but when he has this final big moment with Reigns, where you're expecting this awesome showdown, Reigns eliminates him almost immediately. So it's like, how can I take this guy seriously anymore? And then he gets in a fight with Rowan, and he ambushes Rowan from behind, and that's how he beats him. So there's absolutely no benefit from that victory. Now, at least they sort of made up for this and had a rematch in which Rusev won cleanly, but Rowan seems to be losing cleanly all the time, so it doesn't really matter there either. So just in terms of writing and booking, this probably was the lowest point of this show, which has already failed miserably in the writing and booking department. I didn't care for this match either. A lot of people did, and it wasn't a bad match. It just seemed like, I don't know, nothing about it really stood out to me. And I don't know if it's because I was so interested on a storytelling level, but I don't know, to me it never connected. There were some hard-hitting moments, but I also felt that it seemed like they were going through the motions at times. Once again, this has been a well-received match for the most part, but I did not like it. So whether it's worth watching or not comes down to what you feel about these guys. And then of course we finally get to the main event, Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan, which I thought was a horrendous idea at first. And for once, the WWE writing team actually totally changed my mind on it. It ended up being rather brilliant. In fact, I'm probably one of the greater supporters of this feud because I'm one of the only people who liked that SmackDown Tag Team Turmoil gimmick that took up the entirety of the show, or at least the majority of it. To me, that actually was really cool and helped reestablish Roman Reigns as sort of like an anti-hero, but one who does have a heart, whereas Daniel Bryan is acting oddly ruthless, and you don't really know if this is teasing a heel turn or if he's just, playing mind games with Roman. I thought it was great on a storytelling level, and I think it's worked in putting Roman Reigns back over. Crowds seem to be responding to him more positively now because he's gone back to the dark, brooding, man of few words, once again, anti-hero. Now, granted, I haven't watched Raw yet, so for all I know, he can get booed to hell once he comes out. But I think this storyline has kept Daniel Bryan, as a credible threat at the same time, making him feel important, while at the same time it's putting Roman Reigns over. And I agree that Roman Reigns should have won, even though I think I personally would have preferred seeing Lesnar take on Bryan. I feel Reigns needs it more. Will it be a good match? It's going to be a hard sell because both Reigns and Lesnar need to be carried. So I'm not expecting too much, but if it's good, I really hope it's good. But in terms of this matchup, it was excellent. I thought it was great. I think there were some awesome spots. The first part was a little awkward, but it built up into something just amazing. I thought the second half in particular was just one awesome moment after another, without relying too much on dangerous spots. The punches and kicks seemed really stiff, like they were really trying to hurt each other. In terms of storytelling, Bryan really brought out his technical abilities. He used a lot of really cool wrestling maneuvers on Roman Reigns, and he was a strategist, whereas Roman Reigns was just being a complete powerhouse, and it made them both look really good. So even though Daniel Bryan lost, I could totally buy into a rematch where he could potentially win, just because this seemed like such an even bout with two wrestlers who couldn't be more different. So that was a strong way to end it. And overall, like I said, the pay-per-view was kind of uneven, borderlining on average, but the high spots, which was primarily Reigns versus Bryan and the Usos versus Cesaro and Kid, they're worth watching in themselves for sure, and they're almost, I'd even go ahead and say that they're making the overall pay-per-view worth watching. Even if you're just kind of doing something else while you're watching it, like you aren't missing much if you just want to skip through that Divas match, or even the Ambrose versus Bad News Barrett match. And I personally would have skipped through Cena versus Rusev. But the great spots made this pay-per-view feel more than just mediocre. So hopefully, they're on the right track, and hopefully WrestleMania is great, because the last truly great pay-per-view the WWE has had in terms of the main roster was WrestleMania 30. So if this WrestleMania disappoints me, man, I probably will cancel the network, at least until Money in the Bank. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know how long it's been running. Oh boy, it's been running a while, so let me go ahead and end it. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I often review Raw and SmackDown on Facebook. Check out my website for my written reviews. The last one I put up was House, 1970s Japanese trippy-ass horror movie. So watch that, or read that, and hopefully you enjoyed watching this, and I'll see you guys later.